Welcome to the Black Script Storytellers. My name is Kevin Marable, and today our guest is an Emmy nominated writer, creator, and showrunner whose work has helped redefine television drama. She began her career under Shonda Rhimes' Shondaland umbrella, working on shows like Grey's Anatomy, Off the Map, and Scandal, where she rose through the ranks from researcher to supervising producer. She went on to earn an Emmy nomination for Little Fires Everywhere before stepping into her biggest role yet as creator, showrunner, and executive producer of Onyx Collective's and Hulu's hit legal drama Reasonable Doubt. Now heading into its highly anticipated third season, Reasonable Doubt returns with familiar faces and introduces new cast members, including Joseph Sikora, Lori Harvey, Cordell Beckham, Rumor Willis, and more. With her sharp storytelling, layered characters, and hands-on creative approach, she continues to expand the landscape for women of color behind the camera. We have with us today none other than Raamla Mohamed. Raamla,
Oh,
thank you so much for joining.
thank you. What a lovely introduction.
Yes, yes. I'm so happy to have you on. I'm super excited to talk to you. I'm a huge fan of Reasonable Doubt, myself and my wife.
Oh, thank you. I that makes me happy. I feel like that's usually what I hear people
Yes,
co-watching. That was always my intention that it would be a co-watch.
yes, absolutely. I mean, soon as the first season started, we kicked it off, and we haven't stopped watching since. And every time the season ends, we're like, can't wait for the next season, can't wait for the next season. So I'm
Oh,
always
good.
eager to find out when and to get updates as to when things are happening. So I was excited to find out that season three was upon us, and
Yes.
I've just been following. I'm a fan, and at the same time, I just like seeing shows like yours blossom, and your career is also blossoming as well. So it's great to have you on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I like to start off every interview with a very simple question. Some might find it a little difficult to answer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
That question is, who is Ramla Mohammed?
Oh, who am I? Yeah, that is interesting. Well, I am from LA. I think that speaks a lot to kind of who I am. Born and raised in Winter Hills, View Park area, which is kind of near where the show takes place, and I'm also a Virgo. That also says a lot about me too.
Right.
and um, I'm, only child. My dad was from Somalia. My mom was American, and I grew up. I like to say truly African American,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'd say that from like who am I? I am very much. They kind of make fun of me at work a bit because I'm like a rule follower. I like, I'm like, oh, I like to follow the rules. I like things organized. The very Virgo of me.
Hmm.
But also, I guess I'm pretty. I don't know. I like to have fun, and Um, I like to kind of be in good, positive,
Hmm.
supportive spaces. Just in general, and that's like not just like work, but also family, friends. It's important to me to like. I enjoy being at home. I enjoy being with friends. I have like lifelong friends. I have friends from elementary school, from junior high,
Hmm.
college. So it's like family and friends are very important to me, and I feel very blessed and lucky to have been able to make money off of something that I love to do naturally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm kind of like a happy to be here person. I'm just like, as long as I always said when I was even an assistant, I was like, when I get to the point where I can go out to dinner and not check my account before I out to dinner, I'll feel like I made it. So I'm pretty simple. That was the goal. And here I am, it worked out. But
No,
yeah,
it
just
definitely worked out for sure.
that was just all I wanted was to be able to enjoy going to work.
Hmm. Hmm. Did you always know that you wanted to be in TV and film, or was that something that kind of happened?
No, I always like I used to tell my friends these stories, like even like at sleepovers. I found out some woman had like died in the backyard of our house. So I made up like ghost stories about her, like, at the sleepovers and stuff. And my mom said I used to like take the Barbies and make little stories. And then like I had like sometimes I like even in college sometimes we had these like male like sweet mates that were next door, and I would just like tell them crazy stories like before bed, which sounds crazy, but like I always liked telling stories.
Mhm.
And but I majored in film and English in college, but I didn't. I'm dating myself, but this is like early 2000s. Like there wasn't enough, a podcast or these kind of things where people share and say, this is what I do, or this is what
Right.
a writer or a TV writer does. Or I didn't like writer to me was someone who like is on a typewriter,
Hmm.
chain smoking and, suffering in the cold because they don't make enough money. It wasn't like a real job in my opinion. So it wasn't even an option to think about that. I think once I got to college and I majored in film, I thought I'd be more like a film critic or, film studies. But again, my mom, we're blacks. My mom was kind of like, that doesn't sound
Right.
like money. So that sounds like,
You got to have a career. Yeah.
yeah, like she was like, okay, law school, medical school, like, let's talk about like real things. So
Right.
I think once I got into USC grad school and I was doing like writing, and I think my mom found out from someone that like, like a TV writer makes like six figures or something. And she was like, oh, interesting. So I think that kind of that kind of helped her get
Uh-huh.
a little bit on board. But once I went to USC, I'd worked in theater for a bit and I really enjoyed. I started writing on my own. I enjoyed watching plays, and I
Hmm.
was always a TV fan and movie buff, and so I think once I got to USC, it was kind of like, oh, like I found my people. Like, okay, this is. I think I can really do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a role to take on that is, I wouldn't say it's outside of the norm, but not everybody thinks of becoming a writer, or at least during that time. But
Right.
in today's world, you start to discover that there's a lot more of us out there, and a lot of us are looking to tell our own stories and get our shows made and films made and this, that, and the third. So it's definitely a good career path to have, and absolutely one for the next generation and younger women that are coming behind you, to look up to you and see that it's possible for them to also be in this space and to make things happen for themselves. So
Yeah, for sure, for
it's
sure.
really dope, really dope. Now I do want to go down memory lane real quick. You began working in TV under Shonda Rhimes' Shondaland umbrella as a PA
Mhm.
for Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Um, and then you were also a medical researcher on Off the Map, and then you became a researcher for Scandal. But
Yes.
then you rose to the title of supervising producer, and you've written for Little Fires Everywhere, which in turn you've earned an Emmy nomination, and then went from there to secure your own show of Reasonable Doubt. Can you talk a little bit about like those different stages of your career to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, when you kind of put it together, it seems like, oh, we just stepped
I
on
know
a.
I know this happens.
I mean, I know it's accurate. It's just funny because I mean, it was 2000, like I guess May or June of 2009. I became a writer's PA on Grey's Anatomy, and it was season 6, and I love the show. In fact, even in my interview, I had to kind of downplay because I don't want them to think I was crazy, but I listened to the podcast when people weren't even listening to podcasts. Like
Right.
Betsy Beers and Shonda Rhimes had a Grey's Anatomy podcast, and I listened to that. And
Wow.
they had like a writer's blog where the writers would break down the episodes after, because I was like, when I like a show, I go hard,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
so, I was like, oh yeah, I like the show. I love, like, I really, but I remember walking in and seeing like people's names, like Mark Wilding,
Yeah.
Krista Vernoff, Stacey McKee. I was like, oh, they wrote this one. They wrote, I was very aware. So
Hmm.
it really was that first, I would say I was getting groceries once, and I remember Patrick Dempsey came and like held the door open for me. And I was like, oh, thank you. I was
Wow.
like, this is crazy. And then we went to the table read, and Ellen Pompeo's doing the voiceover, Meredith, and I'm like looking at the script and looking at her, and then looking at now, like now Sandra Oh's talking, and so it was very surreal, and it was very much like if USC felt like, okay, this is, yeah, got my people, like I was still kind of like TV film, I didn't know, and I was like TV, like I
Mm.
loved, the idea that they sit in a room and talk about story, and it comes to life so soon. I mean, I remember, they wrote the script, and then suddenly, I don't know, 8 weeks later it was on TV. Like, it was, it was like, oh my gosh, crazy. So for me, that really was, I was like, I'm in it for the long haul. I had heard that Shonda promoted assistants, which is true. A lot of assistants became writers. I think by the time the Scandal Room ended, it was like half the room had been former assistants in
Wow.
Shondaland somewhere. So, I was like, I'm good. I'll wait. I'll wait until my time. But it was really such a learning experience. And Shonda let the assistant sit in when she gave notes after table reads and different things. So you really got to hear, how she give notes, and because you read the script and then you hear her notes and you see the changes. So
Yeah.
it really was, I say, like a second master class being there.
Yeah.
And then also, with Off the Map, Jenna Bands was a writer on Grey's, and she was kind of like the first writer that they, executive produced for. And so she ended up hiring me to be her assistant on that show. And then when it became, for the pilot, sorry. And then when it became a show, she said I could pick, if I want to be a researcher or stay her assistant or whatever. So I was a researcher, and I learned so much. I got to sit in the room. I got to, look up stories, and spend all day trying to figure out what could be a cool story, how to pitch it. And that was a really great experience. But that was only one season, and that got canceled. But then Scandal was getting picked up.
Right.
So
Right.
then Shonda was like, "Oh, can you fact check this pilot I wrote?" I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "This pilot's good." And then it was like Kerry Washington's being cast and Columbus Short, and I was like, "Oh," I was like, "This seems like a pretty big show." So it was like,
Right.
okay. Like, she's like, "If there's no Off the Map, then you can come be the researcher on Scandal." And actually the research for Scandal was more kind of in line with the stuff that I like, because my mom was and is still a news junkie. So growing
Mhm.
up in the house, she felt like if you didn't know what was going on in the world, if you didn't know current events, you came off as uneducated. So
Right.
we watched the Anita Hill confirmation. We watched, she made me watch the news. I had to know what was going on. I would watch trials. Mom was a court reporter. So like she just, so that kind of like scandalous,
Right.
news story stuff was stuff I was like, oh, I kind of have a
Got
better,
into it. Yeah.
yeah, I got into it. But then it only got picked up for 7 episodes the first season, and I was like, what? because
I
at
didn't
that
know
time, yeah, because at that time, I mean, Shonda had Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice, so
that.
I
Mhm.
was like, why would they? And the pilot, because I seen, Carrie and Tony Goldwyn, I was like, I mean, when he has her in the corner, the Oval Office, I was like, this is a hit. I was like, I want to see more of this. This is
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I was happy I was there for the experience, because it was like, it was interesting to watch, right? Like,
Mhm.
why wouldn't they pick this up for like 80,000 episodes, but you just don't know. And then Sean was like, all right, we're just going to make the best, the best 7 episodes, that we can. And that's what she and the writers did. And I was a researcher that season, and I got to sit in and hear things, and I got to write a scene for one episode, so it was, but again, it was very much like, it wasn't Scandal. Like, if I told people, they'd be like, "Oh, I think I've seen that." And then I came back. I was a writer through the Disney program season 2, and halfway through the show, just like,
Took off.
I've never. It went from, I couldn't even tell people, like, you go to like functions and fans be like, "What do you do?" I'd be like, "I'm a writer." I couldn't even say. I would wait to just avoid it, because people would lose their minds,
Right.
because
I'm sure they would probably bombard you with questions, wanting you to tell
yeah,
them.
and I'm not, I'm like a extroverted introvert. I don't like a lot of attention. So
Right. Right.
it's like, when you're in a big group and suddenly everyone's just asking you, "What's this? What's this?" Like, I was like, I can't, and especially if it was Black women, I was like, no.
Mhm.
Because at that time, there literally wasn't, I mean, you would have to mine through to find a black woman that wasn't watching Scandal, back then.
True, true. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a super huge hit of a show. It was sad to see it go. I mean, it was one of those shows that you didn't really think that it was going to come to an end, right? Um,
Right, right. Yeah,
and
no, yeah, exactly. But and it obviously, it became kind of culturally iconic,
yes,
but
yes,
but yeah, but as far as yeah, so it really was I remember between season 1 and 2, they were on the bubble, whatever. Then they picked it up for 13, season 2, and then finally back 9. And
yeah,
then it was like at the end of season 2, it was like, I think we're just going on hiatus. Like versus, are we coming back? Like you actually can be like, oh, we're gonna come start this date.
right,
and
right,
and and it was nice to be on a show and grow on a show where you
mhm,
weren't scared if it was going to be canceled. So that I'm very grateful for. I learned how to produce. I learned how to write. I learned how to do, pitch in the room. That was the hardest thing for me, was pitching in the
yeah.
room.
No, and that's what a show to be on, to learn all of that,
Yeah, yeah. It
and
was like the
time
Marines
frame.
writing. I
Yeah.
was like, it was because we had 20 some episodes sometimes.
Right, right. Now,
Yeah.
as a researcher, I didn't have this question written down, but as you were saying it, Scandal it takes place in Washington D.C., and I live here in the DMV area.
Mhm.
So for for the research that was done for the show, it definitely presented Washington D.C. and the DMV area well. Obviously, the visual was there, but even just within some of the writing and just the feel of the show overall, it felt
Mhm.
like it was actually it felt like something that we would see here or experience here. Um, but
Yeah,
I
I
know,
mean,
I know a lot of that is Hollywood at the same time. So
right,
uh,
right, right.
you guys come in, fly in, get certain scenes, and then fly out and do everything else. Um, how did you like? Did you have to do any research on the DMV area or Washington D.C. or anything like that? Or
Well,
was
as far as that, I mean, so my dad lived in Washington D.C. for 20 years before he passed.
okay, okay,
So, he
yeah,
lived in yeah, he lived in Falls Church. He
okay,
lived in
okay,
Alexandria. He
yeah,
lived near U Street for some time in
mhm,
Northwest. So
mhm,
I was pretty familiar with DC. We also had like a writer, Matt Byrne, who had worked in like for like I think either CNN, but did like the White House beat. So he was familiar with political stuff. And then then the writers would just do different kind of individual research. But I also think that if you look at the show, it is about relationships. It's about power. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones writers didn't really need to live in like Middle Earth or whatever to like write, what I mean, like to write Game of Thrones, because at the end of the day, it's about themes and different things. So I think the relatability and what speaks to people is even outside of DC. Like it's just that kind of power hungry world
right,
that I think that was created and so smartly, Shonda created those characters from the pilot. It shows, it's very hard to write a pilot and create a world and that's gonna be sustainable for 100 and some episodes. So
yeah, very much
you
so,
know, yeah.
very much so. But so through all of that, if we fast forward and we get to Reasonable Doubt. I guess what was it like pitching your own show and then finally getting to the point to where you knew that it was going to be greenlit and it was taking place?
Well, it's a really up and down world of development. So, Kerry Washington and Larry Wilmore, came to me. They wanted to do a show about Sean Hawley, who's an LA defense attorney, and they just liked kind of the way her mind worked, and so they came to me and kind of wanted to hear my take on it. And for me, um, we know what I found is like who she represented was very interesting and like her moral compass.
Mhm.
But for me, I also wanted to do a family drama as well. So I kind of wanted to see not just this person, at work, but also kind of
Right.
like how does the work that they do influence their life at home and what all that's like. And, I say, I took Sean's job and I told her, I said, when we were doing the show, I said, your life is pretty boring, but I mean, I'm happy for you that it is because that means it's healthy and lovely. But for, television wise, I'm going to have to kind of mess it up a bit and make it a little more soapy. So none of Jax's mess is her mess. She's a very very balanced person. But as far as the development, yeah, we sold it to ABC Network at first and went through that. But then the network kind of the version they didn't really like that version. But then ABC, who was the studio at the time, was like, we still like that kind of idea. Let's redevelop it, make it for streaming or cable or something.
Okay.
And I said, okay, great. And then COVID happened. And so we
Yeah.
were all, yeah, we were all kind of, not knowing obviously what was going on in 2020. And I guess I just was able to do crazy things because, I kind of pitched what I want to do. They said, great. I wrote a script. So I went through a pretty, intense development on the network side, just because it was the kind of standard, like, okay, story area outline, this, that, notes, all that stuff. But, kind of with COVID, I was kind of like, well, here's what I'm gonna do. Okay, great. Okay, do it. Okay, got some notes back from the studio. Great. Oh, Onyx wants to read it. Oh, okay, great. Oh, Onyx likes it. Okay, like, so it was weird. It had an up and down, but then, then we do season one, and
Hmm.
then a strike. Writer's strike.
Right. Yeah.
So
There's a lot of hurdles at
a
that
lot
time.
of hurdles. So and for me, honestly, my feeling about any season or any show, I say until I see the billboard, it ain't a
Mhm.
show. So
That's good.
because you can get it picked. Oh, the pilot got picked up. People be on Instagram talking about, I'm a showrunner, I'm doing da da da, and I just want to be like, just please, I don't want, like, just wait because you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I've had friends who've shot and edited shows and they've gotten shelved for whatever reason.
That
So
makes a lot of sense, honestly,
it's
because
heartbreaking.
you see on social media all the time when a show is about to come, or once it premieres or it's getting ready to premiere, you always see the the producers or the actors. They'll go to Times Square or they'll go to wherever there's a billboard, and then they
Right.
showcase the billboard in the background. And obviously, it's a cool moment to have. And I thought that that's all it was, but to your point, it
It's
also
real.
solidifies. Yeah, it solidifies the fact that the show is happening.
Yeah, it's happening. They can't, they don't, they rarely walk that back. Once they put that money in, the show's coming out. And there's kind of stages. Like when they say, like, oh, there's a date, like when they announce the date, I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
feeling that's good. They announced a date. That's a good sign. And then, yeah, when I saw, the billboard or something, I'm like, okay, they have a billboard over on Slauson and La Brea. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this
yeah.
is happening.
So you don't know when they're putting up the billboards. You just happen to stumble
They
across
kind of
it.
give me a sense. I know where they are generally. I know where it's going to be, and then they give me a general sense. But like when we have our meeting and they're talking about putting it up again, everything's a step. I'm like, okay, you're talking about putting it up, but like, are you gonna like? I just, I
Right.
it again, it's not. I'm not trying to be cynical. It's just
Mhm.
I just know enough people who you put your heart and soul into these projects, and
Mhm.
so it can be very disappointing if, and again, it could be completely out of your control. Maybe someone bought the company, maybe there's a new studio head, maybe it's not, and you just have to roll with it. So I do try to be proud of what I do and then hope other people like it, but I also don't, put, it's not like I feel some kind of validation if people are loving it, because at the same time, then what happens is people hating it, now you hate yourself because
Right.
you're only getting love from other people. So if you get your self-worth from other people, then they become the puppet masters
Mhm.
of how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're opening my eyes to some things that I did not know or wasn't privy to. So
Oh,
now when
good.
I see that, yeah, now when I see that, I'm going to correlate the two.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah. So let's talk about this season. We get
Hmm.
the return of Morris Chestnut, but we also
Hmm.
have some new faces. We have Joseph Sikora. we have Lori Harvey, we have Rumor Willis, we have Cordell Beckham, and several others.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about who they are as characters, potentially, and what to expect in this season?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, just with Joseph, was so excited that, he wanted to come and be on the show. He watched the show, he really liked it, and he's just such a lovely, human being. And he just brings a whole different person to
Right.
Bill. It's not Tommy. And I love Power. I'm a fan of Power. I watched the whole run, and but it's kind of fun to see him be another character, and
Yes.
do it just as well. But also, he's still, he has his moments. You're like, oh, there's Tommy. There is, and but it's good because he still brings that kind of energy to the character, because as you're trying to figure out like what side he's on and who he is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and then as far as the other characters, um, Rumor plays Ozzy's girlfriend, so she becomes kind of an integral part of the season. And then Lori Harvey has a run later in the show, little surprise guest, and she's great. And Cordell, actually, I don't watch Love Island, but
I haven't seen it either, but it's a wildly popular show.
very popular. Yes, yes, yes. But I will say that one of our producers suggested him, and he was great. He plays one of Ozzy's friends, and since we're in the world of Hollywood and
Yeah.
influencers and people like that, and yeah, I'm actually very excited for even like Cash Doll. Like I've been excited to see these people who are known, maybe for not acting or other parts of talents that they have, to be
Right.
able to just disappear into a character. And I
Yeah.
think that all of them did that so beautifully.
No, I mean, this series has a stacked cast, and every season, you keep just adding on layer after layer, and it's just amazing to see how it all comes together, the cohesiveness, the there's a lot of chemistry there. It doesn't seem forced at all.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, this is my favorite season,
Okay.
and I think that I saw online. I think some people are worried about like, oh, they're casting all these people, but it doesn't. You don't feel that way. Like, you really
Right.
are
Right.
feeling the story. And some of these people, who are big, like their roles are smaller in the whole part of the story, and
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
so many different just characters because the story, the case lends itself to that this season.
Okay.
But at the same time, you're still following, Jax and Lewis, and
Right.
the Daniel has a storyline. You're still following the people that you love and are rooting for. But yeah, this is my favorite season. I think it's
Yeah.
the best one.
I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm super excited about it. Another thing that I like about it is, one, the music, and then
Mhm.
two, the titles of the episodes,
Oh
um,
yeah,
and the fact that it's all correlating to hip hop and Reasonable Doubt and Jay-Z, and I come from the music world. Before I got into all of this, I used to rap, and so
oh amazing. Okay.
yeah. So when I saw this, when I initially saw the show, and I was putting everything together, and realizing that the show titles were song titles, and it just drew me in, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. I've never seen the show do this.
Oh,
Um,
good.
make
Yeah, the
it
music,
all
the
make sense.
music, the music is very important to me.
Right.
I spend a lot of time picking what songs,
Yeah.
are in there. I think there's only probably this year there was probably like 5 songs I didn't pick, which is a record to be honest. But yeah, it becomes like me just trying to get a vibe. Sometimes I hear a song and then I think about what what a scene could be. Like sometimes that happens. Sometimes it goes the opposite.
Got it. Because a lot of times the music makes the scene or makes the story. So you do have to choose that wisely, and
Yeah.
a lot of the music plays well with what's happening in the show.
Yeah,
Um,
no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I also it's about, I work with the editors about cutting the music, a
yeah.
certain way. Even in the courtroom, scenes, to have like some of these like hip hop beats because I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of music as well, obviously, and so for me, like it's like to be able to put like what happened to that boy, or something like.
Right.
I also
Yeah.
just I listen to a lot of instrumentals because that's the other
Yes.
thing about hip hop. People don't understand like there's so much musicality. There's like these beats, the way like they're produced, the way like it's. I feel like sometimes it's not like a real appreciation.
Oh,
Sometimes,
exactly. It's
you know?
layered, and a lot of times we're only
Yeah.
focusing on the lyrics and not really
Right.
focusing on the music that draws the lyrics out.
Right.
The two have to be has to be a perfect marriage for it to work. And
Yeah. Exactly.
a lot of times, if you're not a musician or if you don't come from the music world, maybe you might not understand the fact of appreciating the beat or the music, the underlining musicality that's going all throughout the beat that you know makes
Right.
it what it is. So
Yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
same way. I listen to a lot of instrumentals, and just listening and paying attention and watching the show. You can see where you put certain things and how it all makes sense, and
Right.
I love
Right.
it. I love
Oh, good. Good.
it. um, Now, are we also continuing with the episodes being titled after songs?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always Jay Z songs.
Always Jay-Z songs. Okay.
Always Jay Z songs. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Um, Now, can we also talk about your writing just for a quick minute? The way you're able to build a world where there's a family dynamic, a work dynamic, the friend and client dynamic, as well as you can manage to intertwine drama and messiness all throughout, but make it all make sense, which is an art within itself. Um, did you develop this skill over time, or more of an innate ability in your storytelling, as well as where is a good time to end a story, just as much as
Mm.
where's a good time to start a story?
Yeah. I mean, I think, as far as, where I learned it, I learned it on the job, working on TV shows.
Hmm.
Also being on set is helpful because you kind of like you're there to watch the actors kind of act it and you get to see like, oh, this had a different tone than I thought, sometimes in a good way, sometimes not, or whatever. Um, and then also just, I was really into math when I was younger. And at some point I realized like putting together stories is like math, like so it's kind of like when I started to, get stronger at pitching and thinking about story. And when I was on Scandal, I would sometimes think about like, um, the end of something or a scene or a moment. And one of the writers I had, who's really this guy, Mark Fish, was so good at pitching. Like you just be like, what'd you say? Listening to him pitch a story. And I was a lower level writer, and I asked him, I was like, what, like, how do you, like do it? Like, where do you start? And he said, sometimes I just think about what do I want to see, or is there a scene, or is there a moment? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I
Hmm.
started to think about that in my storytelling, um, and kind of think about stories as like geometry, like a proof, right? You know how like in geometry, like you have the answer, right? But in geometry, you have to write out like how did you get here? The
Exactly.
steps,
Yes.
how you got there. You can't just be like, well, that answer is 8. They're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
You have
You
to
need
show
to,
your work.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to show your work, and you have to, and like you have to have these like theorems, and it has to connect and make sense of how you got there.
Right.
So that's how I think of the stories, right? Sometimes I'm like, whether it's a song, whether it's a moment, whether it is even just a feeling sometimes, that I want to feel, and I kind of go backwards. All right, or how am I going to have this feeling,
Hmm.
in this, this season, the does this air after the first episode, or
It can.
oh,
However you guys tell me when to put this
oh
out.
yeah, I'm guessing they probably want you to drop it after the premiere.
Sure.
Like I
Absolutely.
said, yeah. So I'll say this, that in the first episode, the first song you hear is throw some D's on it,
Okay.
and it was so funny because before even Luther came out, like the song, this Kendrick and SZA song came out, I already put that in my pitch. And
Mhm.
then I was like, oh, maybe I should change it to Kendrick SZA. But I was like, no, no, this was going to be great. Is that people, the younger kids are going to think it's
30
because
for
it
30.
starts, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They're gonna hear that opening, and be
Right.
like, "Oh, it's about to be 30 for 30." But people
Just throw
our
some
age,
heat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, people our age are gonna be like, which one is it gonna
Yeah.
be? And there's gonna be gangsters in the house. You're like, "Oh, hey." So
Right.
I when I say that to say, like, it's like you see like Jackson Lewis in bed, and then
Mhm.
so I thought about, like, okay, I'm a fan of Reasonable Doubt. I'm been waiting a year to see the show. Like, what
Right.
do I want to feel
Mhm.
when the show starts?
Yeah.
I want to feel like we're here we are. The
Yes.
music's back, the
Yeah.
sexiness is back. Like, you see Tony right before, like, you're like, oh, we get in it. And so that's like, when I thought about just the opening sequence before the main titles, it was like, what do I want as a fan? What would I want to feel coming in and get
Yeah.
hype?
Yeah.
It's like, even like the like last season when the Tupac played when Lucy came in. Like, I won't
Right.
deny it. I was like, I want to know this lady ain't playing. Okay.
That's what I was saying, like, the music cues up the vibe and gets you into the feel of the show, and it really does fit, it really makes sense.
Yeah. But I don't, what I say is that, like, people don't like, if I asked you, okay, like, if I asked you, oh, last season, episode one, walk me through what happened. You can't tell me what happened. And it's not about the show. It's just, you remember how you felt, right? You could talk about certain scenes in last season. You could be like, oh, when this happened, or
Right.
this part, or blah blah blah. And so for
Have it
me,
memorized is a
right,
different
for me,
story.
like, the plot is important, but the characters, the story is
Mhm.
important. That's what resonates, and how it's like the thing of, like, people don't remember what you said, they remember how they made them feel. So
Right.
that's how I approach, the show. It's like, how do I want you to feel? How do I want you to feel in the beginning of the show? How do I want you to feel in the middle of the show? How do I want you to feel by the end?
Mhm.
And where do I what emotions do I kind of want you to feel? And so that to me, that's important, because I'm taking myself back out of it, and I'm just thinking about me. It's Thursday night, I had a long day at work, I'm just trying to watch my show.
Mhm.
It's like when people were mad when they changed the Power song. you know and,
Yeah.
because people were like, "We back, bop
Yeah.
bop, big rich town." They were like, "Well, what happened to the big rich town?"
Yes.
And so it's one of those
Becomes
things
a
that is,
staple.
yeah, but it's one of those things where you're like, "Well, why would it matter?" Whatever. But
I
it's
know it matters.
because, yeah, but it's because of the feeling. It's a
Right.
feeling, like, it's like, and so I do try to remember that.
Mhm.
Um, that's even when I watch TV.
Mhm.
That's how I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we love to have shows where it's relatable through and through, even in the intro,
Right.
outro, and all of that. We like
Yeah.
to sing along and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, you
Um,
want to you want to see, like, like, these shows that we watch, you want to be excited or blown away.
right, right. Now, as far as the lead character Emiyatsi, and also McKinley Freeman,
Hmm.
watching this series, that was my introduction to both of those characters. I had never seen them in any other show before
Oh,
that.
the actors. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, did you know that were they your top choice for a Reasonable Doubt? And I'm only asking that because they were like perfect choices, perfect as a couple,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
dynamic and that
Yeah,
chemistry.
yeah, no, so we auditioned, for Jax, in both roles, for Jax and Lewis. Just a bunch of people, like, I mean, just all of Hollywood felt like, I don't know this. And I really wanted, people to audition. Sometimes a lot of, like, kind of offer only, but I know I was like, Jax seems to be smart and funny and,
Mhm.
sexy, and, like, and a little bit of hood. Okay, like, you have to believe all those elements.
Right.
And that was hard. That was harder than I thought it would be. Even though, for me, I was like, I know so many people like this, so it felt like it. But it was hard. And I will say, Amiyati came in and she made it look easy. Like, she really, like, I mean, she everyone did like three scenes, and I say, like, I mean, we had really good actors, and they could get two scenes, not the third one, or like kind of get the funny, not the quite the sexy, or get the smart, but not the funny. And so I was like, and she did the first scene. She auditioned, did the scene with Damon when she goes to visit uh, Damon at prison from the pilot,
Okay.
and then after her Zoom went out, so she did this. She was supposed to do the scene with Lewis fighting. I didn't
Mhm.
stay. I didn't get married to sleep alone. Scene. And then she's supposed to do a scene with Crystal, like to the window, to the computers, to the phones. And she just did the Damon scene, and her Zoom went out, and so we're waiting, and
Man.
I was like, I'm gonna be honest, like she could like if she can't come back, the role is still hers. You know what I mean? Like, but then she
Feels
came back and
good.
still, then blew us away. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean it was very clear. And then of course, so okay, so now we have Beyonce, so now it's like, okay, well now we gotta find,
Lewis.
who's the match. And we had two actors that she read with, and including McKinley, very different Lewis's, right?
Mhm.
Like one was more kind of more that video game nerdy, but then the other one's kind of like more, I believe that watch your wife have sex while drying a blunt. so so it was kind of like, so we had what they call chemistry reads,
Right.
where we kind of see in person. I mean, we did it over Zoom, but then we were like, let's do it in person and really like see. And yeah, her and McKinley just hit it off. They were kind of like talking between the
Mhm.
takes. He was already making fun of her a little bit, and she was like roasting him a little, like
So you
and
can
I was
see.
like, you just saw it. You just saw it. They complimented each other,
Mhm.
so well. And I think it's one of those things, like you either got it or you don't. Like I was saying with, the Kerry Washington, Tony Goldwyn, like that just,
Right.
it
Right.
was like magic,
Yeah.
So it's I feel like it's harder to say what it is until you really see it. So seeing them together, and then what they just bring individually, just as actors, is really
Mhm.
incredible.
Um, are there any misconceptions about being a creator slash showrunner that maybe the next wave of creators should know or be aware of?
Oh yeah, yeah, there is. Is that it is 100% a creative job, and it is not. It is 50% a creative job, probably. Like, obviously there's the writing, there's running the room, there's post, all those things are the creative parts of the show. Being on set, being able to have meetings with the director and talk about your vision, or say to the production designer, oh, this is kind of what was envisioning, or this, I knew it was going to be in the Dons. Okay, well, I want them to have a view, like a, classic Dons view, or I want it to, whatever. There's all those conversations. But then there's the other side, and that is there's a show, and then there's the business, right? Because you are the CEO of the television show. And what
Right.
that means is that means HR. That means, that means financial stuff that you have to look at. That means making decisions, hiring or firing, or like all these things, or just, like I said, like, like there's a lot of things regarding the budget you have to kind of be aware of. There's just random things that come up that a location falls through. Okay, so now, I mean, I guess you have to kind of be creative about finding another one, but it's not just like, well, I wanted it to be at the bank. I was like, well, there's no bank, so I don't know what to tell you. So again, it's about making it producible. It's
Yeah.
not going to be on. It's not going to be. It's not going to be on television exactly the way you want.
Mhm.
So what I do is I actually go backward. I flip it. So I like to know what I can work with before I get too excited about things, right? Like
Right.
I want to know if I'm going to the Chanel store or Macy's. You see what I'm saying? My my money and my thoughts are going to be
Different.
different.
Right.
Yeah, like if you tell me we're going to a shopping spree to
Yeah.
Chanel store, and then you take me to Macy's, I'm not going to be very happy, right?
Right. Right.
But if you told me we go on a shopping spree to Macy's, but no one said nothing about Chanel, then I'm happy because I'm like, wow, a shopping spree, that's very exciting. so
Absolutely. Yeah.
so if you just writing for the Chanel store
Mhm.
without knowing that you got Macy's money, you see what I'm saying? Then you're just gonna be cutting and taking the story apart, and you're gonna lose your mind. So
Yeah.
I wanna know what am I working with, what's realistic. I definitely think about, I look at through the script, even when we break it in the writers' room. I'm like, all right, guys, it's too many locations. Let's cut it down, or at least maybe combine. Like if I can have 4 scenes at one location, okay, then I'm using the location
Hmm.
in a good way. So, just the stuff like that. You really do have to think about. And I think that part of it, I think sometimes is overwhelming for creators.
Yeah, you got to juggle a lot. There's a lot going
Yeah, and
on.
it takes up more time than I think you expect. I think that's the part.
Hmm. Now, you've also recently signed an overall deal with 20th
Mhm.
TV, which
Yes.
means you'll be developing and producing more projects in drama, comedy, limited series across networks and streaming platforms. Is there anything that you might be able to speak on at the moment?
No, nothing at the moment, but I am trying to figure out what the next thing is. I think that's the question. Because for me, I really want to be able to do something I'm excited about. I've always said, even when I've interviewed for other jobs, I everyone has their strength. And for me, my strength is being a fan of a show. Like that's how I know a show. Like I'm like, oh, I really connect to it. So I think about as a fan, what do I want to see? Like, I mean, Scandal was perfect for me because I was in my 30s, Black woman. I remember once I was at home and I realized I was eating popcorn and wine, not even like on purpose. And so, I just was like, so for me, I was like, oh, like it was so exciting for me to work on that show because I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I would watch if I weren't writing on the show. So for me, it's about thinking about, what's going to excite me, what am I going to be a fan of? And so I really want to be careful in how I kind of choose that next thing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever convert over to feature film, or are you just
I have some features in development. I have a writing partner, Ryan Richmond, who's also a writer on the show, on the feature side,
okay?
that we've been kind of, trying to develop things on the side between seasons or whatever. But
Mhm.
all of it is hard. I think you just have to just try and see what lands, and yeah, that's all you can do.
Okay. And if you could go back and tell your younger self anything about this business that could potentially help you level up faster or maybe not make as many mistakes, if any, what would that be?
Oh, I would say don't be scared of the mistakes. Like, I've had a director make me cry, like on set. I had a boss that said that she was gonna promote staff an assistant reading samples, and I didn't get my shit together, and she staffed someone else. So I made, a lot of mistakes. A lot of it for me, honestly, was, I was at the right place at the right time. If Scandal hadn't taken off, then it'd be another show that people talked about that was so great that got canceled, and then I would have to start again somewhere else. So my trajectory is based on not just talent; it really is luck. So I'd say if I had to tell my younger self one thing, it would be don't listen to the people around you as far as like
Yeah.
friends and family. It's really hard to, particularly in this business, because there's no clear path, right?
Mm.
It's not like, oh, like I went to law school, then I am associate, then I'm a partner. There's so when you're working at Starbucks, when you're trying to say, oh, well, I'm working at Starbucks and I'm nannying on the weekends as I write my short that I'm going to produce with my friends, whatever. A lot of people are going to be like, that sounds crazy. Yes,
Mhm.
but that could be the thing. Maybe you're the next Issa Rae. Maybe you're, Lena Waithe, whatever. I think like you have to believe in yourself and you have to keep trying. You know what? That path doesn't work. Take this path. This other thing doesn't work. I was buttering people's bagels. Okay. I was getting coffee. I was getting lunch, but I was also being a student
Right.
of, of the show and anticipating people's needs and showing people that like I'm a hard worker and getting people to know who I am and in a way that I didn't know where it was going to lead,
Hmm.
but just trying to make good relationships, and so that maybe you are at the right place at the right time and then you're prepared. So I started once I found out I didn't have when I didn't have that script and that other guy got stabbed, I said, fool me once. And every weekend I was at a cafe writing. I was writing specs. I wrote a Mad Men spec. I wrote a Shameless spec. I was like, I wrote a pilot. I was like, do, 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 do. And I learned from it, and I watched a lot of TV, and I just was like dedicated to it. Despite other people kind of being more successful or making more money, and I'm not making a lot of money. I just kept at it, honestly.
Sometimes you can't focus on what other people are doing. You have to only focus on yourself, and
Yeah,
whatever it takes to get your foot in the door. You can't. Not everybody starts here, you know.
exactly. To be honest, most people don't start up.
Right.
You just don't know. Like you're coming into. I actually Jay Z did this interview, right? He was talking about that. Like most people just see, they see Kobe getting 80 points and
They don't
winning
see the work
titles.
behind it.
They
Yeah.
don't see the work. You don't see the
Mhm,
work behind it,
mhm, mhm.
and so that's you can't stop the work. So
Right.
so I would say, yeah, I think some of the time I wasted was being concerned about like what I should be doing versus what I knew I wanted to be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, uh, if there's anything that you can say about the next season of Reasonable Doubt, to gear the audience up as to what to expect, please let us know. I'm dying to
Oh,
hear.
I don't need. I will say from the first scene to the very last scene, mouth drop is a lot happening. It's fun. It's definitely sexier. I think people are gonna be real mad at the end every week if they're watching because they're
Oh
gonna want
man.
that next episode right away. So yeah, I think I'm very proud of this season. I'm proud of everyone who worked on it, and in front of the camera and behind the camera, and I'm excited for everyone to see.
I do have one more question.
uh,
Are we getting more than 10 episodes?
no.
Okay. All right. All
Way
right.
too
Okay.
many episodes, yeah.
Man.
And
Okay.
10 episodes is good. It's a good number.
It is. It's a
You don't
solid
want to
number.
like drag. You don't want like filler episodes. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I
If
like
I,
a
if I
strong
thought,
fill, you know, the
yeah,
fill.
if I thought I could tell it in 12, like if I thought I needed 12, then
Mm,
I would tell it. But I don't think so. I think it really keeps it fire and
got it.
exciting.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I like to let my guest have the final word, whether that be
Oh,
a quote, a words of encouragement, or advice that has been passed down to you by somebody else, or that you like to live by. You could say one of the three, or you could say all
oh,
three. It's up to you.
oh, wow. That's the pressure. um, I don't know if there's really. Uh, oh, I guess I do. I don't now. I can't find it, but I used to have this little thing on my desk here that said, "Why not now?"
Mm, yep.
And I feel like a lot of times, and again, it's with anything, right?
Hmm.
Where you're kind of like, "Well, I'll do it later," or if it comes to me, it comes to me, and it's like, just, "What about now? Let's try it now."
Right.
And again, that to me doesn't matter how old you are.
Right.
They're people like Morgan Freeman, Dustin Hoffman. These people who started late in their career, and there are people who you see like Cheryl Lee Ralph. I mean, she started her career early, but she's like at the like an Emmy. Like she's right at her age now. Like it's like she's having a whole
Yeah, things are happening for her big
yeah,
time.
like a whole resurgence.
Mhm,
So what if she said, "You know what? It didn't happen for me.
mhm.
It's over." You know.
True. True.
Then look that's how I feel like why not now. I think as long as you are alive and you have the talent and you have the wherewithal, I say do it now.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Well, Ramla, thank you so much for this interview. I'm truly grateful and appreciative for you allowing us the space to ask questions, you giving us time to talk about Reasonable Doubt 3. I'm super excited about this new season.
Oh good, me too.
And I also want to say happy belated birthday as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. It's Raamla Mohamed, everybody.
Thank you.